Hey everyone, welcome to the ChitChat. I'm Rebekah Reysen here with Jeremy Roberts, and we'd like to welcome you back to the show. We hope you're having a great semester so far. Today we have a very special guest who works with us in academic support, and her name is Sarah Holmes. Welcome to the show, Sarah. Let me talk a little bit more about your bio here. Sarah Holmes is originally from Strayhorn, Mississippi, and is pursuing her master's in counselor education with an emphasis in clinical mental health counseling. She graduated in May 2020 from the University of Mississippi with her bachelor's in both psychology and sociology. She currently works as a graduate assistant with the Center for Student Success and First Year Experience, where she serves as a student success coach and academic mentor. Aside from work and her studies, Sarah enjoys reading, visiting her local coffee shop, and spending time with family and friends. Good to see you. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, we're really pumped to get to talk to you. And I guess we'll just start off by learning a little bit more about you and how you got involved in the Student Success Coaching Program.
Okay, yeah. So basically, it started in January of last year. So, January of 2021, I reached out to actually you, Dr. Reysen, and I was like, hey, I was wondering if you're hiring for the fall of 2021. And you were like, yeah, like we probably are. But at the same time, like we also have a position open right now. So I interviewed with y'all that same week. And then next thing I know, I was seeing students 2 weeks later. And so that's kind of how I got started. Last semester, I served as an academic mentor and a success coach. And right now, I'm the primary success coach. So.
Very cool. Yes. So in terms of coaching, we have a lot of students that, that you see and do a great job helping and advocating for. And some people may not have heard the term student success coaching or know kind of what coaching sessions look like. So what does like a typical coaching session or the coaching process in general look like?
Yeah, so typically our first meeting or my first meeting with students is just getting to know them, figuring out what they need, whether it be learning to study for one specific class, because sometimes there's that one class that students struggle with and they want to focus all of our meetings on that one class. Or it may just be they need someone to help them with organizing their classes or need help with time management. And so that first meeting is really where we figure out what the student needs and how we can go about helping them with that. And so then after that, depending on what the student needs, we kind of go the rest of our sessions with figuring out how can we prepare. For example, like I had a student last year who needed help with test prep. So we met, 3 weeks before each test and we go over test prep strategies, whether it be how to study for that test, how to lower their test anxiety, stuff like that. And so that's pretty much what we do. And then it's also like a really good informal setting in a way because students can come in if they don't want to talk about school. They can also say, like, hey, Sarah, I've had a really bad day with my roommate. Can we just talk about that and figure out like where we could maybe come up with a solution? So it's really informal, but at the same time, it's just a great way for students to get some extra support, whether it be finding resources for them, such as with tutoring or getting them connected to the Career Center or Writing Center, or even focusing on specific things such as organization and time management.
So, what are some reasons why students struggle in college? What have you seen from what some of your students have said to you in the past?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest thing that students struggle with is because I see primarily freshmen. And so the biggest struggle is transitioning from high school to college. And I say that because in high school, all your teachers know each other. They can all talk about like, hey, are you giving a test that day? Because I don't want to give our students like 2 tests in one day. And then they also have all their classes in one building or, maybe at the most like 4 buildings, but not 5 or 6 buildings across a huge campus. And so the biggest thing that I've seen is that the students just struggle to either get on their feet or get adjusted to college and what the expectations are, and also managing all those classes. I know when I was in high school, our teachers were like, okay, like this is what we're going to do. And it was kind of like a day by day thing. Whereas college, you get a syllabus and it tells you everything for the whole semester. And it may be like huge papers, and then all your classes may have tests that same week, or they may all have papers due. And so I think that's probably the biggest issue that I've noticed is that students aren't used to having to manage their time and used to having as much freedom as they do and figuring out how to navigate those classes.
Okay. So, what advice do you have for students and how they can become successful in college?
Obviously, I would love to see as many students as I can. So get connected to a success coach or even your advisor or academic support programs in general. But overall, if they don't feel comfortable doing that or that they don't think they need that level of support, get organized. Get those syllabus out, lay them all out. And if you have to make a day-to-day schedule for yourself on what you need to do, or if you need to write all your due dates down in a planner, get it done the first week of classes. Usually professors post even a day early before your class starts or something like that. Try and get organized and come up with a steady schedule where that way you know your free time and you know like for an example, if a student wants to get involved with sports or like one of the club sports or a club or an organization, I always say, okay, let's make sure you have a plan with your academics where then we can see when you will have time for that. And so that's definitely what I would recommend for a freshman or any student coming in. For example, like I came in as a transfer student, so I transferred during my junior year to Ole Miss, and so that was like a big thing was ask questions too. If you don't know something, just ask your professor, ask your TA or your GA, just ask questions because questions, there's never a dumb question. And if you don't understand something, it's better to ask it before you get too lost and know the answer than to not ask it at all. So.
Okay. So how can students here at the University of Mississippi actually contact you to get on your books and then start the coaching process?
Yeah, so they can they can just look up on the University of Mississippi website. There's a thing in the top right corner. It's like a search bar, and that's probably the easiest way. And they can just type in Center for Student Success and First Year Experience. And they can go under academic support programs, and there's a link for them to follow to fill out a request form. And that usually goes to you first. And then after that, you send me the students. And then I reach out to them both through text and through email and just give them my schedule. And usually what I tell my students is that if they book a time, that doesn't mean that they're going to, for example, like I have a lot of 8 a.m. times, and that doesn't mean that they're going to be stuck with that 8 a.m. time. It just matters on getting that first initial appointment where then you can make sure you're booked throughout the semester. So.
Very cool. Well, we have a lightning round coming up, but we also wanted to kind of check with you before we move into the lightning round, if there's any other things you'd like to add or mention before we move on to that next step.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is with coaching is that I know it can be intimidating at first because like you mentioned earlier that not a lot of people have heard of success coaching or student success coaching or anything like that. And I do think it can be intimidating and students come in a lot of times with not knowing what to expect out of the process. And so I always suggest students just to come in, try it out. And then if it works for them, great. And if it doesn't, you can at least find some other resources that may fit your needs better. An example is I had a student come in the other day and he was like, yeah, like I need your help with my resume. I was like, I mean, I can help you a little bit, but I can also connect you to another department on campus and they can help you further. And then we can get back together and make sure that you had a good experience there and that you got the help that you needed. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend just students trying success coaching. Reaching out to us is the best way to get in touch and get an appointment, but just try giving it a try because some students that you never expected would need it or would want it come in and they find a lot of joy out of it. And they also like see an increase in their grades or at least feel better about their organization and study skills and stuff like that.
Cool. Well, in terms of the lightning round, we have a question for you, which I have to say, when I think back to my professors I have had and stuff, I've never really thought, what was their freshman year like? Sometimes we like to ask this of our guests, like we see people in their roles on campus, but we don't necessarily think, they've been freshmen too. So we'd love to hear more about your freshman year of college and what that was like.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I was a transfer student. So I technically spent my freshman year at a community college. And the biggest thing was I was scared to death. I thought as soon as I walked in there, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so hard. Like, I'm not going to do well. I went out and I bought all new school supplies. I was like, oh gosh, like I got to all my classes an hour early and just sat outside because I was scared that like what if that wasn't the right class and stuff like that. So I was terrified. And the funny thing is that community college was only 20 minutes away from where I live. And the majority of the people in my class I knew. And so I think that's why it was so, like, it's crazy to think that I was that scared and I knew the majority of the people, I knew my surroundings and all that. And so since my freshman year was a little different than like the students I see, I also would like to bring up like my junior year when I transferred to Ole Miss, it was a completely different ball game. In the way like the buildings in general are like bigger and it's like, oh gosh, like they have like 5 floors, not just that one floor. And like your classes are not 20 people like they were at my community college. These are like lectures of 100 and each professor is so different. You don't know how they're going to be when you walk in. And so I definitely would say my freshman year was scary, but my junior year was just as scary, just because like you should have seen me my first time ever riding the bus. I was like, oh gosh. And then I saw people pulling down the little string. I was like, what are they doing? Turns out that's how you tell them you need them to stop. So, but yeah, my freshman and junior year were definitely scary, but I do think the biggest thing with me was just making sure I sat down after I got all my syllabus and made my planner out and made it out like 3 different places in my planner, in my phone. And then also every day I would write down a daily thing that I needed to do, whether it be to read this textbook or take this quiz. And I just would check it off as I go. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we sure do appreciate all of your help and all of the support you provide students. And like we mentioned before, you're a student success coach, but you're also an advocate. You advocate for students all the time, and we definitely appreciate all of the hard work that you're doing here.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thank you so much for allowing me to have this job and just allowing me to see the students that I see. I definitely think like I did not know about academic support programs when I was in college. And so had I known, like I would have been blowing you up then, but I'm thankful now that I get to work with you guys and just have the opportunity to see students and help them not be so overwhelmed and so scared when it comes to freshman year or any of the other years. So thank you.
Sure. Well, great. Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I'm Rebekah Reysen and Jeremy Roberts and our great guest here, Sarah Holmes. Great to see you all. Feel free to check us out on social media, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. We're also on Spotify, a bunch of other places. So good to see you, and we hope to see you again soon.